Thanks for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast. If you like what you hear today, be sure to like it, follow it, share it, give it a big fat review. You can also follow the show on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for regular updates about upcoming guests. Today, we're brought to you by Metro Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram at Chicopee. Stop by their state-of-the-art dealership next to BJ's and Big Y on Memorial Drive, or stop by MetroJeep.com and make it Metro. And then drive home in your new Metro Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram today.
It's Baxie's Musical Podcast.
You know, outside expectations are a funny thing. While most of us have our personal goals and the hopes of achieving a few of them along the way, not every expectation, especially those set by other people, gets fulfilled, especially if your own personal goals, especially the successful ones, don't exactly meet all of those outside expectations. For example, starting in 1979, the band The Red Rockers were being hailed as America's Clash. Initially formed in New Orleans, the Red Rockers started off as a pretty straightforward, classic American punk band. Based upon their earlier stuff, you can see why some people may have seen Clash-like potential in these guys. Especially true in their first release, the 1980 EP Guns of Revolution. Same thing with their full-length debut album, Condition Red, which came out the following year. A record that featured backup vocals from Jello Biafra from the Dead Kennedys on their cover of Folsom Prison Blues from Johnny Cash. They also saw their song Dead Heroes appear on the 1981 punk compilation, The Best of Rodney on the Rock, which was put out by legendary Los Angeles disc jockey Rodney Bingenheimer. In other words, you could see why people had the expectation that the Red Rockers might just become the American version of The Clash. But very much like The Clash, the Red Rockers didn't exactly stick to just one lane. If you've ever listened to 1979's London Calling, you know that The Clash flirted with multiple styles of music. Reggae, rockabilly, R&B, ska, even a few moments where jazz had become an influence. So it shouldn't have come as much a surprise that when the Red Rockers released their next record, that they might switch things up as well. And they did, especially with the release of 1983's Good as Gold, which yielded the breakout single China, a bona fide new wave classic that peaked at number 53 in the Billboard's Top 100 that year, but also reached as high as number 19 on Billboard's mainstream rock charts soon after it was released. But that doesn't exactly tell the whole story, since the single has had a lifespan of its own that goes far beyond music charts, a record that still gets played today, sometimes in the most unlikeliest of places that you might not expect from America's Clash, like grocery stores and shopping malls. It's a song that has had a life of its own, a life that has exceeded the initial run of the band, which first broke up in 1985. Of course, 1985 is hardly the end of the story either. Singer and guitarist John Thomas Griffith enjoyed a long career with the band Cowboy Mouth and scored a hit, Jenny Says, in 1991. And bass player Darren Hill went on to join the Boston-based band The Rain Dogs in 1985 and now runs 10 Pin Management, a management company which represents folks like Paul Westerburg from The Replacements, the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, and the New York Dolls. The Red Rockers got back together during the reissue of their debut album Condition Red in 2023. They've just released a fantastic live set through Liberation Hall Records, which came out on May 22nd, called It's in Our Blood, which was recorded live in their hometown of New Orleans that year, a show that looks back at those early albums with a couple of covers from The Who and The Clash tossed in as well. To talk about that, the band, and being America's Clash is my guest today, Darren Hill from the Red Rockers on Baxie's Musical Podcast.
How are you doing, Baxie?
I'm good. I'm really good.
Where are you located?
Springfield, Mass.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And you're
you're right down the street.
Yeah, and you're in East Greenwich?
Rhode Island, yeah.
Greenwich?
East Greenwich, Rhode Island.
Very nice. I grew up like 10 miles out of Providence. Did
you really?
Well, that's what kind of describes all of Rhode Island, really.
Right?
I grew
That's
up
the whole state.
Yeah, I know. I grew up in Rehoboth, so it's like Rehoboth, Seekonk, East Providence. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so that's it's great to talk to someone who's knows the area. That's wonderful.
Yeah, so were you involved in like the local Providence scene and all that?
So
Or did you just
in the 80s, I worked for Channel 10 in Providence as a production technician. Then I went to school in Wisconsin, came back in the 90s, and been in radio in Springfield for the last 31 years. So that's where I've been, back and forth.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. 30 years of it. It's great it is great to talk to you. I did get a copy of the new CD. I also got
good.
Also got a copy of the DVD, which I have not had a chance to look at yet. I gotta say, when Liberation Hall does one of these live sets, they're usually really, really cool. This one sounds particularly good, and I don't know why, how that happened, but it's really fun to listen to, especially since knowing you guys hadn't really played in 38, 40 years or so.
Yeah, that was the first show.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that night.
Well, I mean, it was leading up to it that was the most fun, because we got together. I mean, John, James, and I would see each other all the time, at least 3 times a year down in New Orleans. And we always talked about doing the reunion show. But when we reissued Condition Red a couple of years ago, it gave us a reason to actually hang the reunion show on. And so, and that's a wild story too, how that came about, which maybe we can touch on later. But anyhow, we got together in a rehearsal space, and it reminded us of, the first time we ever got together in John's parents' garage, and started the band, started playing songs, and initially it was covers of our favorite punk songs, and then started writing our own songs. But it was just, that feeling just came flooding back. And I don't think we played a note the first day we got together, because we were on the floor laughing, and it was just, I mean, tears of joy. It was so special. So it was worth it just for that. Yeah. So once we reissued the Condition Red, it was, we booked the show, and I billed it as the first annual New Orleans punk rock family reunion, because we were kind of the kingpins of the New Orleans scene at the time. And we've done another one since, and I'm working on a third one for this year. So,
oh wow, that's great.
It'll be fun. Yeah, the idea was never for us to headline these things, but we'll be playing. But I've got someone else that's probably going to end up headlining it.
So when you guys go back and you listen to Condition Red again, maybe to refresh, what you knew or what you played, I just listened to the record for the first time in a long time, just the other day. I was getting prepared to talk to you. And it reminded me of what a great record it was at the time. And you can see where you get this comparison of Red Rockers being the American Clash. I mean, you can kind of see it. But I have to believe
we wore it on our sleeves. What are you talking about?
I would think so. But I would also believe that having that comparison on your shoulders can be both a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways too. I mean, yes. I know you guys are huge fans of the Clash and totally understand why. But what was your reaction to that comparison? I mean, and how did that even begin?
So it began with Lester Bangs. He had a 2-word review of Condition Red, and it was American Clash. That was it. And, I thought about it, and I said, you know what? Coming from Lester Bangs, like, I know he was, taking the piss out of us, but to me, it was a compliment, the highest compliment we could be paid. Like I said, we wore it on our sleeves. I mean, please, the album cover itself is like, like the Clash's first cover, and the songs, of course, and we idolized those guys, and we felt like America needed a band like that, so we were happy with it.
Well, I mean, at the time that record comes out, I mean, obviously there's punk bands out there, and everyone's got their own, influences, whether it's be the Stooges or the Sex Pistols or anybody else, but very clearly, I don't want to say it's derivative, because that's not really the word at all, because it holds up. But when you listen to that record, I think for most people, when they hear what would come later, it's like, well, why didn't they stick with that one? Because it was so freaking cool the first time. But I mean,
I know.
But I mean, but to have that comparison, I mean, it is a lot to live up to for any band, and even the Clash, changed what they did for like on London Calling. They're like, there's 15 genres on that record.
Absolutely, and then look at Rock the Casbah. I mean, songs like that were on Combat Rock.
Yeah.
What's the point of being redundant and just repeating the same record sound over and over again? We were trying to evolve and grow, and we were actually learning how to play too. So it was just natural for us to set the bar higher and try to evolve. And we also realized an important thing, that we felt like we could get the same message across in sort of a different format or sound that would reach more people, you know. And I always reference, China, our hit single, which we took a lot of grief for. On the B side of that was a song we recorded way prior to that called Voice of America, which was about America's corporate interests in South America. And, to me, it was a Trojan horse, subversive, and we've got 14-year-old girls listening to this, our B-side of China, and getting this heavy political message. And little did Columbia Records know that, in the song we mentioned CBS as being one of those corporate entities. So how that got past them, well, I know how it got past them.
They didn't listen to it. They only heard China, and that was it.
Exactly. So that was our compromise.
Now, do you think at any point someone went to Joe Strummer and said, hey, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but you guys are like the British Red Rockers? Do you think that ever happened? Anyone ever went to Joe or Mick or Topper and say, hey, you're not going to believe this, but...
Oddly enough, when Jim Riley from Stiff Little Fingers joined the band, he arrived in New Orleans. The Clash were playing like 2 weeks later. We went to the show with Jim, met those guys, and kind of made that same joke to Joe. And but it worked, because the next day we were leaving to go on tour with those guys. They didn't have an opening act for the rest of the dates, so we jumped on it, and but yeah. No, and we also wrote him a nice check too. So
well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are based in New Orleans at the time, and my understanding, there were probably very few punk bands coming out of New Orleans, and it sounded like what was happening is you guys were opening up for everybody, every punk band that came through that city. It sounded like you were placed on the bill at some point. That kind of had to be kind of fun. I mean, it sounded like you guys opened up for a shitload of people.
We did. Every single punk band that came through town, we were the opening act, because we could draw. And, some of those bands, as big and well known as they were, in New Orleans, it's a different country almost. It wasn't, it didn't never translated down there. So we were able to bring the crowds in. And I think the bands themselves were appreciative, and it helped us set the table for moving out west to get a record deal. Because, like X, Black Flag, Dead Kennedys, all those people, once we got out there, we just picked up the phone, called them, and, they helped us get some gigs and, talk to labels and all that.
That was one of the cool things about, especially when you talk about, Black Flag, Dead Kennedys, DOA from Canada, that there was this almost this network of almost like a pre-social network, social network for a lot of bands. Where can we go? Where's a good place to play? Where's a safe place to go? Whose couch can we sleep on?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds kind of fun in a way, but it sounds like you're basically flying by the seat of your pants no matter where you go.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
So I mean, so when you talk about like the bands that you open for, I mean, you mentioned a couple of really big ones. Were there a couple that stood out as like really amazing nights?
Every single one of them, but we wanted to make an impression on them, but we didn't want to upstage them. Not that we could to begin with, but I remember here's a good one. So the Circle Jerks were in town in New Orleans, and we had just gotten our contract from Howie Klein at 415 Records to sign with 415. We didn't have an attorney or anything, so I took it to Keith Morris, of all people, and I said, hey, what do you think about this? And he goes, I don't know. I mean, it's, they'll put your record out. Do it. And so we had him bend over on all fours and used him as a desk, and we signed our contract on his back so that he would take some responsibility in this.
That's great. It's nice to know that he helped you make a fine business decision. That's good.
Yeah, exactly right. He missed his calling. He could have been a great, music business attorney.
Sure he could have. You also you mentioned Dead Kennedys. I know that the Jello sang on one of your songs in that first record. Tell me about bringing him on in a recording session.
Well, he was one of the couches that we slept on when we first went to San Francisco at his house, like many bands did. I think DOA was staying there at the same time. He just befriended us, and he really genuinely liked us. And I think it was because of the message in our music. And so he would give us gigs anytime the Kennedys were playing in San Francisco, and we'd open for him at the Fab Mab and all those places. And when it came time to do the record, we felt like, you know what? I don't know if people are going to take us seriously if like when we toured, it was like from New Orleans, the Red Rockers, as opposed to from San Francisco, the Red Rockers. It meant more.
Yeah.
And, I felt like having Jello on there would give us a little bit of credibility that would help us break into that.
Well, and he's such a shy fella, too. I mean, he's so quiet and reserved. I mean, just hard to see.
The first time we didn't even ask him up. He just jumped on stage with us, took over. It was great.
I interviewed him a couple of years ago. It took we were talking for a good 15 minutes before I got the chance to ask my very first question. So, but just an amazing mind on that guy. Just it's always in hyperdrive.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
To his detriment sometimes.
Sure, understood. That happens to all of us. Yeah. So in '83, you guys come up with "Good as Gold." It features China. You mentioned that before. Obviously, it's a very different direction for the band, but there's a timelessness about that song that I think is undeniable. I mean, you hear it played everywhere: grocery stores, gas stations, you name it. China shows up everywhere.
It does. What are
your thoughts about the
messages from people in grocery stores playing it for us? And I'm like, this is crazy. We're trending big in grocery stores.
I mean, what are your thoughts about the longevity of that song? I mean, it really is pretty remarkable.
I have no idea. I mean, I could understand when it first came out because I think, that was the advent of MTV.
Yeah.
And they probably had about 12 videos to play at that time. So they played the shit out of it. And, it took on a life of its own from there. But without the visual attached to it now, I wonder how it's connecting. Is it nostalgia? What is it, or is it just a good song? That's what I'd like to think.
I think it's just a good song. I mean, there's obviously going to be some that will look at it in a nostalgic way, but, there's a lot of nostalgic songs out there that aren't going to get played at a Macy's. I mean,
right.
I mean, you're not going to hear, you may not hear Mexican radio or, the safety dance or whatever it may be. But China I think it's got this universal appeal to it. It's just a good, solid pop song, which is interesting considering where you guys were coming from on that first record. You talked about there being some backlash about that song. Explain what that backlash was all about and what you guys were feeling as a result of it.
I think a lot of our early punk rock fans that were expecting Condition Red 2, and they heard this, they immediately cried sellout. And I didn't think that was quite fair, and I'd much rather have a bunch of girls in the audience than a bunch of skinheads. So we just didn't care really.
Right. Well, they're prettier that way. That's
yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, it kind of goes back to talking about the Clash and London Calling again. They're mixing up genres. I mean, Train in Vain is exactly White Riot or London's Burning, but yet but no one's ever going to accuse them of selling out. It's just funny to me that's always been like this big giant overwhelming looming fears. Like, I hope to God they don't ever sell out and they continue to be poor and never have a hit.
Yeah. I think there are a couple of factors involved in that. I mean, one was like, that was the first, I think it was the first record that 415 was joined Columbia Records, and they poured a ton of money into us. I think that had a lot to do with it. Suddenly we're on, not on the cover of Flipside, but we're on the cover of Teen Beat and, MTV and everything else. I think it was just the combination of all that.
You can't tell me that deep inside, like Greg Ginn from Black Flag didn't wish he was you for that one day. I mean, I got to believe everybody wanted to be the Red Rockers at that point.
Yeah. I would hope so.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, they're all human beings, for crying out loud.
We kept pinching ourselves. We couldn't believe it.
When you guys recorded that third album, Schizophrenic Circus, I mean, obviously things seem to be, when you listen to it, it's I think it's still a good record, but it may not have the focus of the other two. And it for whatever reason, it didn't have the commercial appeal. Is that when things started to fracture because perhaps you had this kind of this meteoric single that was so successful and it just didn't translate into the next record? Was that part of what led to the fracture of the band, or was it something more than that?
No, that was pretty much it. And the pressure that being on a major label put on us and following up a hit was just tough, and still trying to remain true to what we were trying to say with our music. Yeah. It's
not a story that you've never heard before about the kind of pressure that success often brings. And
yes,
the crazy part about it is, and it doesn't matter who you talk to, they'll all kind of say the same thing. There is no replication of success. Like, once you hit it once, it's a different kind of success the second time around. And and sometimes just finishing the record at all is the most successful thing you can do.
Yeah, and it's been said to death, but I mean, your first record, we had, the first 2 years of the band to write those songs. And then, going into Good as Gold, I think we had to get it together within 2 months. And, I think we did it. But then after that, like, because we were touring nonstop, and then suddenly to be thrust into our third record with high expectations that we knew we could never meet. Like you said, it's so fickle. The pop hit industry, and once you play in the major leagues there, major labels, you have to you got to be really careful and tenacious and stand your ground. And I think we got bowled over by it. We weren't mature or smart enough. We were very naive, and we were easily manipulated. So I think that would have been probably the biggest mistake that we made. And as a result, it fractured the band.
You had a pretty amazing second act, though. After the breakup of the band, I mean, you wound up playing with other people. I think you came to Boston, play with the Rain Dogs, and at some point down the road, you get involved with Paul Westerburg from The Replacements.
Yes,
and I know you have a very good relationship with him, a good friendship with him, and have had for years. How did you get involved with him in the first place?
Well, oddly, not oddly, but the Red Rockers actually, The Replacements opened for the Red Rockers on a couple of shows in Washington, D.C. and a couple others. So I became friends with him then. And then in 1993, he invited me to audition for his first solo band, post The Replacements, for the 14 Songs record and tour. And David Minahan, who you probably know of from the Neighborhoods, and I got the gig, and it was probably the greatest time of my life, those couple of years. And then cut to like maybe 3 or 4 years later, I end up managing him, and I still do to this day. And he's was the best man at my wedding and my best friend, and it's just a great relationship.
I've always been a big fan of The Replacements. In fact, I think it was last year or the year before, I talked to Chris Mars.
Oh, nice.
Awesome guy. His artwork is amazing.
Good gosh, it is.
It's unbelievable. I mean, that's like,
I don't know how a human can create those things. He's superhuman.
It's international gallery quality type of stuff. It's amazing. And I even had to buy the book. I was like, I have to have this in my house.
Oh yeah.
But with the Replacements, I mean, I remember seeing them twice, and I and I said to Chris, I said the first time I thought it was the greatest show I had ever seen in my life. The second time, I'm not sure who was more drunk, me or the band. So it was hard to determine whether it was good or bad or the first one. I mean, it's hard to even know. The Replacements are such an odd story in so many ways. There's so much self-sabotage going on with that band. And in many ways, I mean, that just seems to be part of the personalities of the people who are involved. To manage a Paul Westerburg, to be a part of that sphere, has to come with some pretty significant challenges. Or once he got out of that, was he no longer in the same type of space that he was, say, with, like the Replacement Stink or Tim or one of the other albums?
Well, for one, he was sober then.
Good.
Yes. And I think that made a difference. But it would raise its ugly head every once in a while. And I can tell you some stories that probably curl your toes. But yeah, I think I had an understanding, though, of what they were all about. The Replacements wouldn't have worked if they just played it straight.
No.
It wouldn't be the legacy. They'd be rich, but maybe they wouldn't have their place in the rock and roll.
The recklessness of it was part of its beauty.
Yes. And let's face it, wasn't that what attracted us to rock and roll in the first place?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny because, I mean, I Paul emerged as one of the best songwriters of that entire generation, that entire, decade and a half that he was producing records. And as a fan, I've always found it to be disappointing to know that he's, largely retired from it all now.
He's full retired, not largely.
So there's absolutely nothing you could do or say to pull him out of retirement.
Nope. It's my job to protect him from people who want to do that. Money means nothing to him.
Well, okay, that's good to know, because I was about to write a check for $38.57 to see if I could get him out.
People have tried adding like 7 zeros to that, and it's still not working.
Well, I mean, we're working on this.
I respect
this is a small operation, Darren.
Yeah, right. I know. I understand. Your budget's limited.
Of course it is. It's a podcast, for crying out loud. I'm not dragging in Joe Rogan numbers here, but you also managed a few others too, and one of the ones I thought was really intriguing was the New York Dolls. You had some sort of connection to that. Was that during the reunion year in 2004, or was it before or after that?
No, it was well before that. Managing David Johansen, I started managing him 2 years prior to, maybe 3 years prior to the Dolls reunion, and so I helped facilitate that, and got the call from Morrissey for them to come over and play Meltdown in London, which was the impetus for the band getting back together. And what an experience. I mean, you can pretty much see it in, I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary New York Doll about Arthur Kane. Yeah. Great. Which I'm actually in.
Yeah. So. It's a great documentary.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tell you, the best part of those shows was I walked backstage and all my childhood heroes are there, from Chrissie Hynde to Mick Jones to Paul Cook to Mick Jones and blah 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 blah, like Sir Geldof, and they're all there. It was unbelievable because all those bands were influenced by the Dolls.
Yeah. I think that the amazing part about that documentary and that reunion is, you see everybody in it, there's a little trepidation in the beginning, where they're all kind of getting together in the same room, and you got, Sylvain and Arthur and David in there. But by the end of it, you see how much Arthur is almost transformed by the fact that this happened at all, considering all the things that he had gone through in his life. I think that's one of the things that's so powerful about that documentary is, it's like, Arthur was almost like the forgotten member of the band, and what a sense of validation it was to be included, and then to play, and then to be a part of it. And unfortunately, he was at the end of his life, but man, what a remarkable
but no one knew
story,
that
right?
At the time, and that makes it so bittersweet. And the filmmaker knew Arthur from the Mormon church because Arthur was a Mormon and he was working at one of the centers or something like that. And, you know, when he found out that that Arthur was going to reunite with the Dolls, you know, I have to document this. And I said, yes, you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was so, man.
I mean, it's an incredibly emotional thing to watch. And, you know, I didn't know him, but it's just to see what he had gone through and what his life had been like since the breakup of the Dolls, and then to get that second chance to play with them. What an amazing experience that must have been for not just him, but even for the other guys to know what he had been through and to go through it.
Absolutely. And those, you know, David and Sylvain loved Arthur, and he was the kindest, gentlest, sweetest person in this business I think I've ever met. And it was really heartwarming to see him finally get some recognition and, you know, fame that he so deserved.
I was listening to another interview that you had done talking about managing Rocky Erickson.
Oh, yes.
Which is another really interesting story. I mean, this is a guy who is like the central piece of, you know, 60s psychedelia. And what people may have forgotten about him, besides, you know, the 13th floor elevator, people tend to focus on maybe the wrong things about him and not just about what a great artist he was, but they kind of focus on the mental health aspect of his genius, kind of like in the way they kind of do. Like
Daniel Johnston,
or even Brian Wilson, even a Johnny Thunders for that matter. We don't talk about how great of a guitar player was. Most people only want to talk about how much heroin he could do in a night, and it's like it misses the point of what makes a guy like Rocky great. And your experience with him, I know, is very different. What can you tell me about, you know, working with a guy like that and where he falls into the larger picture of stuff?
I mean, he is one of the most forgotten, unsung heroes of rock and roll, truly. And he had so many incarnations. I mean, from not only the Elevators, but his solo career too. It's just unbelievable. And I will note that, you know, he was on 415 Records, and that was part of the reason why I wanted to sign with 415 Records. I was a big fan of his early on, so this meant the world to me. And frankly, I didn't even realize he was still alive. And I had gone down to Texas for South by Southwest one year or whatever, and his family approached me and asked me if I would help, you know, get his career restarted again. And I was a little bit afraid. I mean, you know, I like you know, I'd heard all the stories and what am I getting myself into, you know? But again, he was just an amazing genius. And I found out early on that I sort of understood the language he spoke, and not a lot of people did. So I was able to help him, I think, go through this and revive it and get him off the medications and out of Section 8 housing. And one of the most rewarding yet frustrating times of my life, I think. It was a lot of work, and to this day I'm still combating what you had just mentioned about, you know, that's what everybody thinks of when you mention Rocky Erickson, not the brilliant songwriting or, you know, just ahead of his time material, and just wonderful.
When you're managing an artist and they have, you know, whether it's issues or a backstory that may or may not have damaged their career in some way, do you approach that differently than, say, somebody else that you're managing that may not have had those kinds of situations? Because it sounds like in a lot of ways you become not just a manager but a caretaker, partially, you know, a psychiatrist.
Babysitter, a confidant. It's way more than that than my business acumen. It's about that, connecting on a personal level, and understanding artists. And by the way, I only work with people that are screwed up. Look at my roster. I mean, the Dropkick Murphys might be an exception.
I was going to say they seem to be a pretty with it group of folks. Maybe not the Mighty Mighty Bosstones, I mean, not all of them at least, but most of them are doing okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of just part of managing people, whether it's artists or whatever. I think that's just how business goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So now that the CD is about to come out, the Red Rockers, in our,
they didn't send you the vinyl.
I don't have the vinyl. I do. Randy sent me the CD and like I said, the DVD.
Cheap
but
bastards.
Yeah, I know, but it's okay. I will. After this conversation, you've guilted me into buying the vinyl. How about that?
I'll send you one.
Okay, but now that this stuff is out and people are getting a chance to kind of associate themselves with the Red Rockers were all about. I mean, do you guys have plans to continue to play together, or was this kind of like a one and done type of thing, or what would be next for you guys?
Well, we did the second reunion, and for that, the focus was on Good as Gold. So we did that album in its entirety. And one day I'd love to be able to, give that record the same treatment we gave Condition Red, where we peeled off all the 80s, sound, the reverb and the wash and everything else, and just have it raw and natural like it was intended to be. But again, I think I said we were going to do another reunion later this year.
That's
just
cool.
Probably a mix of different things. And
just out of curiosity, when this show happened, and this is a show from 2023, and
yes,
it was being recorded, did you have plans of this to release this recording, or was it just kind of done for posterity for the sake of doing it?
No, we did the show at Tipitina's, and they have a 7-camera film package that you could opt into if you wanted. It costs a little bit of money, but it was just because they had to have film operators and whatnot. So we said, yeah, what the heck, why not? Just for the sake of it, let's try and document this. So we did that, and our sound man recorded it multi-track, and about a month after the show, he started sending me videos of cut with the music that he had mixed and synced up. And I said, you know what, this isn't too bad. It's like, maybe we should put this out. And like,
no, it actually, I mean, considering not every live album sounds terrific, this was recorded very, very well. It really was.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Darren, this has been so much fun. I mean, I've really enjoyed talking to you, and like I said, I've loved the records. I've been listening to the Red Rockers for years, and it's a real joy to talk to you.
You too, Baxie, man. Very much a pleasure. Thank you.
No problem. Anytime.
All right. Stay in touch.
Will do. Thank you, Darren. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The name of the new album from the Red Rockers is called It's In Our Blood, available now on Liberation Hall Records. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can reach me at bax@rock102.com. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks to Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram at Chicopee for their support, but most of all, thanks to you for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast.